Welcome to the DFS Build MLB edition. I'm Kevin Roberts with Taylor Smith. We have a fun MLB slate on hand. No NBA today on account of the college basketball national title game, I reckon. So it is MLB or bust for everybody. So let's win some cash, shall we? This video is sponsored by DFS Hero. Really cool lineup optimizer. So if you don't have one or you're looking for another one, check it out. You get a 15% discount if you hit our link in the bottom in the video description. If we help you out in any way, please give this video a like and also consider subscribing to our channel so you can get alerted to future videos. All right, Taylor, let's get right into it. We got Mariners and Jays facing off today. This includes a chalky pitcher in Jose Barrios. So starting on the Mariners side, I guess you can talk about Luis Castillo as well. I don't really have much interest in him personally, but he actually projects okay comparing to the rest of the slate. I think the real interest would be how much do you want Barrios on this slate, and how much do you want to leverage with the Mariners as a stack?
I will probably wind up on the Barrios side of that. Not excited about it, but Seattle did strike out quite a bit, like 25% against righties since last year. So there is some upside, and he's cheap. And on this slate, cheap pitching is going to come in handy with the stacks that we have.
Yeah.
So I get the Seattle leverage play. They do have a lot of lefties that he's going to have to face. I think 6 of them in the lineup today. So not an easy spot, but he's cheap enough to where I think I'm going to do it. And Seattle, like I said, is fine as leverage, but they're kind of a middle-of-the-road stack. And I think Castillo on the other side is a bit secondary for me, just at his price point, 9,400. It's a little cheap for who he is, but not the best matchup. Park downgrade for him relative to their home park, so probably not going to have too much of him either.
Yeah, worth noting, Barrios is in the optimal 26% of the time at DFS Hero, and he is cheap. So like you said, he does make a lot of sense. Seattle does also make sense as a leverage stack, though. I like them quite a bit as far as just because the ownership is heavy on Barrios, and he's not exactly immune to getting shelled. Like you said, they do have enough lefties there. And just like as a whole complete stack, regardless of handedness, they just have a lot of power. So yeah, I actually like the Mariners quite a bit. I think I'll probably be a little bit underweight on Castillo if I enter a lot of lineups, but I definitely see the merit. On the other side, I don't know if you really like the Jays or not here. They obviously face I said Castillo before. I meant Barrios when I was talking about that. But yeah, they face Castillo. How do you feel about the Jays as a stack?
Not good. They are kind of pricey and not a great team in the first place. Not really going out of my way to target them. I don't think Castillo's going to be that owned anyway, so you're not really getting leverage that way with Toronto.
Yep, agreed. All right, to the next game we go, Mets and Braves. The Braves are obviously the big favorite here. This game has a pretty healthy total. Julio Teheran is out there for the Mets. So that makes the Braves very appealing. I mean, the Braves are always stackable, but I would imagine they're going to be pretty popular here based off the matchup. Let's see. Stack on percentage, they rank 4th. But for the Braves at 8%, that's actually not that bad. So I think they look pretty good, especially considering we have a Coors game. I'd imagine you agree the only issue would be getting the funds appropriated to actually afford them.
Yeah, and I think you can, just because there is cheap pitching like Barrios and someone else we're going to talk about. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of prioritizing them. You know, the Diamondbacks are at Coors, the Astros are in a good spot, Dodgers are on the slate. So they're not alone in terms of, you know, the high-end capability, but obviously they're one of the better stacks. I would like to get to them if I can against Tehran, not a good pitcher. The Mets are kind of a leverage play, I think, off of Charlie Morton. If Morton's going to be somewhat popular, he's coming in around 20% from what I see. So, you know, it's not exciting to get to the Mets. They're not a good offense and stuff, but I don't mind that as a leverage play. In general, they're a little cheaper than some of the other top stacks on this slate. So I'm kind of getting to some Mets, even though it's not comfortable.
Yeah, I don't like it that much, but I do understand it for leverage play if Morton's going to be chalky. Is he actually chalky on the slate? 9%. I don't know. I don't know if we definitely need to do that, but obviously the Mets do have some power, and they definitely have some lefty bats to possibly get to him. His walk rate does increase by 3% against lefties. So there's merit to it for sure if there's going to be ownership there. I think that does it for this side. of this game. All right, Dodgers and Twins. We got James Paxton taking on Minnesota. Obviously, in a vacuum, he's going to look pretty good. Only problem is the Twins do have a good amount of power, and they have a lot of righties to throw at him. So how are you feeling about Paxton? And on the flip side, do you like the Twins as a stack?
Paxton's fine, 8-7. He projects decently enough. This Minnesota lineup's not a super high strikeout bunch, though, so it's not a perfect spot for him. He's not going to be a core play. I have him at about 15% of lineups right now. I'm okay with it, but not going out of my way to play him. And Minnesota is one of the stacks I'm getting to the least, so I'm not really playing either side of this too much, but Paxton's where I'd lean if I was.
Yeah, I mean, the Twins are, I don't know. I think they're interesting just because the amount of righties they have to throw at him, and they do have some power, but I don't think either of these are going to be a major priority for me. On the other side, you have Bailey Ober against the Dodgers. I can't imagine we feel good about Bailey Ober here. He got shelled in his last game, I believe. Let me double check.
He sure did.
Yeah, -17. So I can't imagine he's got a bounce back spot in him against the best team in baseball. The Dodgers obviously project really well here, and they just have the advantage across the board. I mean, are you forcing in Dodgers, or are you kind of like ranking the Braves and Coors ahead of them today?
Yeah, I have them a little bit behind those teams and Houston and Tampa Bay. I'm actually getting to Ober at about 20% of my lineups right now just because he's cheap for who he is. Obviously, he was awful in the opener, and there's a chance maybe he's the latest guy that's not quite healthy. But for the dollar, I think it's a pretty good buy low, even in a bad matchup. It's kind of just the nature of the slate. I think paying down for pitching is pretty appealing tonight.
Don't know if I'm going to get there with you. We do get a 3% leverage with the Dodgers, and obviously they are the Dodgers. So if they're going to be a middle-of-the-pack stack as far as ownership, that's pretty interesting to me. If Ober doesn't have it, we can just bet on him not having it again, right? So that's definitely a possibility. So, yeah, I like the Dodgers as a sneaky unowned stack tonight. Phillies and Cardinals. Spencer Turnbull faces the Cardinals. I would imagine we're going to side with the Cardinal side of this. You stacking up St. Louis today? You using Turnbull?
Not using Turnbull. St. Louis, not really getting to either. Also not getting to the Phillies at all. They have a high total, but park downgrade for them, and the pitcher that's pitching against them is the guy that I'm playing more than anyone else on the slate.
Oh, I feared that. Michaelis, it's a whole lot of red in his grid.
He's 5'3". He's 5'3".
He is 5'3", but there's nothing in his portfolio to like, except for that he doesn't walk anybody.
He doesn't walk anyone. He doesn't strike anyone out.
I mean,
the play is that he gets through easy innings. Right. He pitches to contact. He totally needs BABIP to go his way. It's obviously not a comfortable play at all. I wish I was not on the bandwagon with him, but it's just I want to pay up for bats, and he's 5'3", and he's not like a total Kyle Freeland gas can. He's just kind of a mid starter type that doesn't have a huge upside. But for 5'3", if he gets me 10 to 12 points, I think I'm kind of thrilled with it.
He did bounce back in his second game, 16 fantasy points. Yeah, he's not going to do anything. He's not a good fantasy pitcher. It's just the reality. This is a pure.
But he's priced accordingly. Yeah,
I know. It's okay. I think it's fine. I think if you're getting the bats and he doesn't sink you, it's a good play. But that is a gamble against the Phillies for sure. The good news is they do strike out a bit, 24% overall. So that could help his strikeout numbers. And like I said, he doesn't walk anybody. So these guys who do strike out, obviously looking at Schwarber, Castellanos, these guys are more likely to strike out in this spot than usual, maybe. But yeah, Kyle actually walks a lot. But he does strike out a lot.
But okay, he's not a wild walk guy like Blake Snell or anything, so should be okay.
Not at all. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it'll be okay, but I understand why you're doing it.
Okay. I mean, he won't beat himself with walks is what I was getting at.
No, he shouldn't. Okay, so we got Astros and Rangers. Framber Valdez is taking on the Rangers. Not a good matchup for him, just because they have a lot of power, but nothing about his portfolio grades out poorly here. So do you like him today, or are you focusing more on Texas bats?
Framber is actually a little cheap, I think, for 8K, but he's kind of a ground ball guy more than a strikeout guy, especially recently. Bad spot, of course, on the road against them. I don't think he's a bad play just because he's affordable and I'm looking to pay down a pitcher. So I'm getting him around 12%. So he's not a core play by any means, but he'll be in the player pool, I think, for me.
I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, he does miss bats quite a bit when he's on. So they strike out like 24% of the time. They have quite a few guys projected to be in the lineup that whiff a good amount. So I think he's an okay play. And I don't really see anything that is advantageous to stack Texas beyond the fact that they do have power and they're not going to be owned.
Yeah,
so,
I'm not looking their way really tonight.
No, I think it would be either you don't like, you may not like Framber, so you don't play him, but I don't see why he's not going to be owned. So where's the leverage, right? So I don't see why you really would need to go to the Rangers. The other side, the Astros technically have a good spot against Andrew Heaney. He is a good pitcher. He can get strikeouts, but he also can have major walk problems and power issues, and that's not good against the Astros. So I like Houston as let's check their ownership as a stack. They are the third highest owned stack on the slate, which makes sense. I mean, it's not like he's a cakewalk matchup at all, but so if they're going to be like a chalky stack, maybe I'll get off of them more, but they do look good. I do think they look pretty good here. What do you think?
Yeah, they do. I mean, he's a strikeout pitcher, but they strike out very little.
Right.
I think their K rate as a team was like 17%.
Yep.
Against lefties dating back to last year. So they're going to be hitting the ball. And when he allows contact, he allows fly balls and a lot of home runs. So Houston looks good. Mostly right-handed lineup, and the two lefties, Alvarez and Tucker, do hit lefties well. So happy to get to them in stacks. They are going to be popular, but as of now, they're still my second highest owned stack, even accounting for ownership. So stack them, get different elsewhere. I'm a bit over the field on Heaney, only because he's coming in with like no ownership at all, and I have him at about 5%. But that's just a pure large field dart throw type of thing. Houston going to be popular, so Heaney on the flip side is just kind of a YOLO play.
Yep, I agree. All right, next up we have the Coors game, Arizona visiting the Rockies. Obviously, Arizona is the top projected stack of the slate. That makes sense. Don't really have anything bad to say about them. Obviously, they're facing Kyle Freeland. The only downside at all to me is that they're going to be chalky. I don't know if that really matters. Some of them aren't even egregiously priced either. So, like, full fading Arizona scares me a little bit. Kyle Freeland has not been good this year. Historically has not been great. Really has issues against righties. So all the righty power for Arizona looks good, and it's Coors, so a full stack across the board looks good. Is there any other reason that we should not be stacking Arizona today?
It's only ownership. That's the only reason not to. Just because, like you said, Freeland's probably the worst pitcher on the slate. He's been awful this season. Wasn't good the last few years even. Used to be a ground ball guy, but even that's dried up a little bit. So now he's just kind of a guy pitching to contact that doesn't keep the ball on the ground. Arizona, low strikeout lineup anyway, so they're going to be putting the ball in play. It's hard to see them completely failing. Obviously, it's possible. It's baseball. Anything can happen, but I'll be getting to them. I'll be eating this chalk. Coors is always frustrating because, when they don't do anything, you feel like an idiot for playing everyone at 30% ownership, but it's really hard to figure out how they fail tonight.
Yeah, let's look at their ownership here a little bit. I'm assuming the ownership we're seeing is going to be more than that, but right now it's a fairly big slate too. So maybe it won't be quite as egregious. Like, you're just saying like 30%. I'm assuming one or two of the guys will be that high owned, but I think it could end up getting a little bit more spread out than we think. But yeah, right now they're my top stack. I don't really see a reason to get away from them. I think what I would mostly do is try to get different at pitching or my secondary stack, or just look within that stack and look at what Arizona guys look good but aren't carrying ownership. And that's probably what I'm going to do, because Freeland sucks. And Coors, and dude, they don't strike out. They have power. It's just not good for him. So That said, on the other side, you have Zach Gallen, who is carrying ownership in Coors, which is always kind of dicey. I do like Gallen in a vacuum because the Rockies aren't very good. But if Gallen's going to be owned, and the Rockies stack I feel like is not owned, let's make sure. Yeah, they're like below mid-range here for ownership. They're not looking like a positive leverage stack for correlation, but I don't really understand fully why, because I think they do. I think they would be a little bit interesting if Gallen is going to be owned. What's his projected ownership? 20%. So if that holds, a Rocky stack actually looks a little bit appealing to me. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think he should be 20%. He is a little underpriced for who he is, but obviously the context shift going into this park is pretty awful. The Rockies are bad, of course, which is worth noting, but they're also not super expensive compared to some of these other high-end offenses, and they're going to be unowned, I think. So yeah, I don't mind looking their way. It's not exciting, but I do think if Gallen's going to be popular, then certainly stacking the Rockies is viable.
Yep. All right, Rays and Angels face off. We have Zach Eflin going up against the Halos, who don't look great. I don't really ever like playing Eflin, but I don't mind him here. The Halos have Anthony Rendon in their lineup, who is just a name at this point in his career. Does he even hit on the year?
He has one.
God Lord, he's been so bad. No, he's got a hit in his last 3 games. We started out first 5 games hitless. He hasn't been good. The power hasn't been there at all. So, anyways, I do have a little bit of interest in Eflin here. Not very much interest in the Angels. What are you thinking?
It is a pretty high strikeout lineup for the Angels. Mickey Moniak, 35% since last season. Miguel Sano only a 7 plate appearance sample, but 71% strikeout rate. So he will swing and miss on you a little bit.
A corpse of Sano out there.
Yeah, still has power, but
yeah. Well, no, they have power in their lineup. They have like 4 or 5
it's
guys.
really not a bad offense overall. But Eflin for 9K. The Rays generally limit pitch counts, especially early in the season. I don't think he's a bad play, especially if he's going to be lower owned than some of the other high-end options. I don't mind Eflin at all here.
No. By the way, his strikeout rate is okay. It's magnified greatly by the matchup as far as how much they could K here. He does not walk anybody, and he doesn't give up power. So the concern with the Angels is their power potential. Obviously, it's baseball. They could just go hit 10 homers tonight and make me look stupid. But, I mean, this feels like a dream spot for Eflin when you look at, the numbers across the board here. So I like them quite a bit, or like him quite a bit. Not really feeling the Angels. Unless Eflin carries, like, crazy ownership when things get updated. Right now he's coming at 13%. That's fine to me. On the other side is Tyler Anderson, if I could ever talk, who looks quite targetable here with the Rays. So yeah, I mean the Rays look pretty interesting here. Are you looking at Tyler Anderson for some value at all, or are you gonna go on the Rays side?
Anderson is 7.6, so if he was cheaper, I would have interest. But tonight, not really. I'm much more on the Tampa side. They do have decent righty power, especially at the top of the lineup. Paredes, Diaz, Arozarena, etc. Pretty good hitters from the right side. He's kind of like Michaelis in that he's not a strikeout guy, but he has good control and typically goes the way BABIP goes. But I'm just going to be on the Tampa side and hope that it goes against him tonight.
Yep, 100% agree. All right, next game we got Cubs and Padres, a revenge game for you, Darvish. And Javier Assad is on the other side facing the Padres. So I think you is going to be kind of owned here. Coming in at 21%. So I guess we should have a little bit of interest in the Cubs as a leverage stack. And they do have some power here. And he's given up a 186 ISO to lefties over the past year. So I don't hate the Cubs here. But I do see the merit in you. I believe the wind's blowing in, and it's a pitcher park. So I guess you could go either way. I think the rationale for playing you does make sense if you want to go there. What's his price actually?
84.
Yeah, so that's not too bad. I'm okay with him. But if he is going to stay chalky like that, I do think the Cubs as a stack look pretty appealing.
I'm not really getting to them. I'm more on the U side of that just because he is a little cheap, like we were saying. He's in the Gallon, Framber, James Paxton kind of price range. I have him more than any of the other three. So I don't think it's a great spot. Like Chicago is not striking out much this season at all. They are a pretty good offense with power. But like you said, it is a better park for pitching, and I'm paying down for pitcher. So I'll probably get to him more than the Cubs.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's just like an ownership play. It's not like I'm coming into this slate loving the Cubs. It's just he's going to be 23% owned, so that's something to consider. All right, on the other side, you got the Padres. Obviously, Assad is not an elite pitcher, so you have to consider the Padres, although they don't really grade out that well here. How do you feel about San Diego?
Yeah, I mean, Tatis as a pay-up is always interesting. You can one-off him here, I think. Lineup as a whole doesn't really have a lot of power anymore, though. Without Soto in there, it's kind of meh, especially once you get past like the top 5.
No more Slam Diego.
Yeah, Slam Diego, RIP, 2021 to 2023.
It's true.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of Assad, but again, it's not the best hitter's park to begin with.
Yep. I mean, you can totally do it, but it's just there's nothing. It's like we always talk about prioritizing and standouts. It's just they just don't stand out. All right, last game of the night, we have the Nats visiting the Giants. One of the chalkiest pitchers in Blake Snell coming in with 23% ownership. I believe is the chalkiest pitcher of the slate. Makes total sense because when you look at the Nats, it is a pretty good matchup. They do not have a lot of power in general. They certainly don't have a lot of power going up against the Southpaw. Snell has always struggled with his walks, but everything else looks pretty good here. He is expensive, I believe. Yep, 10.3K. I think he's the most expensive guy, most expensive arm on the slate. But I'm gonna kind of lock him in. I mean, obviously you could go ahead. That is like the tournament way, right? You could stack the Nats, but I don't like that as a leverage stack at all. What are you feeling?
Well, they don't strike out a lot. They don't strike out a lot. They don't walk a lot. They don't have a lot of power at all. The thing with Snell is that he's the most expensive pitcher on the slate. It's his first game of the year, so we don't really know what his pitch count's going to be. And like I said, I'm kind of eyeing the value pitchers. I think paying up for bats is what I'm going to do, especially if Snell's popular. Like it's a scary fade. I have him at about 3% as of this recording. So I'm pretty much fading him as of now. That could change, but looks like I'm not really going to be on either side of this. Like Washington, I'm getting to at about, let's see, 10%. So I guess I'm pretty firmly on the Washington side, kind of just as a value hedge stack.
Well, there is that. Yeah, the righties only strike out against Southpaws 15% of the time. So that is definitely noteworthy. Also noteworthy is what you said. Is he going to be limited at all? So I actually would like to get a better idea of what his pitch count is going to be. If it's going to be closer to like the 70 side or something, then I would get off of him at that price. But if he's going to have more of a regular debut or even remotely close to it, I do still like Snell here. But I think it would be either you play Snell or you fade and probably ignore the Nats. Like I'm not anticipating some big blow up game for the Nats or anything, but you never know. All right, on the other side, Trevor Williams is a guy we can attack, and the Giants look pretty darn good across the board. The only issue is they tend to just randomly bench guys without giving a shit about anything. So Williams gives up power. He doesn't have a big strikeout rate. The only thing is he doesn't really walk people that much, but there's just not much to like there. So I like the Giants a little bit. I think getting to them is fine, and I have no interest in Trevor Williams. What about you?
No, he's cheap, but I'm just playing Michaelis straight up over him. Better pitcher in a better spot, I think. Giants, it's a good lineup. It's better than it was last year, and they did have a new manager come in that's not going to be as platoon heavy as Gabe Kapler was, but it's a bad hitter's park here, maybe the worst on the slate, and it's not like a super cheap stack either. So Williams, I will acknowledge, is bad, but San Francisco is one of my lower owned stacks on the whole slate.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think for me, for the most part, if you're looking at stack ownership percentage, I mean, I really don't like the Arizona. It's just mega chalk right here. And I also like the Rays a lot. And I spoke about the Astros. We can always fire up the Braves. I mean, obviously, all these offenses look really good, so they're going to be owned. If we're looking down as far as like, let's see, there's not like really a lot of flat out leverage. The Dodgers do stand out to me, 3.6 here, and they still have a decent run total. They stand out as one of the best stacks that will go a little bit overlooked on this slate, but they won't be cheap, obviously. So if we kind of marry our strategies here and I go Dodgers and go with the pitchers you like, that could be a decent formula on this slate. But as far as stacks that look pretty good that are not getting owned, who do you like at the tail end here when we move past the Dodgers? There's unowned stacks that could potentially give us an edge in tournaments.
I mentioned Washington. I'm going to be over the field on them and the Mets just because they're facing a couple of the better pitchers. They're a little cheap in general. Atlanta had the best, I think, leverage score of that whole page you were showing right there. So if you want to pay up for them, obviously that's a phenomenal way to go.
Yeah, I mean, they are only the fourth owned stack. And when you look at these two teams taking up 24%, I mean, honestly, suddenly Atlanta just is not going to be that owned when you really look at it. Tough to get away from Arizona completely, though. But yeah, I might have to do a little more digging on the whole Blake Snell situation before I commit to him tonight, I think. Overall, I don't really love it as a pitching slate. It seems a little bit dicey overall. A lot of good offenses to look at, though. All right, that is going to do it for us. Hopefully helped you out a little bit. And if we did, give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck.